Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge now. That video's coming up. Let's go. So what is up guys, Nick here helping you to master your technology, and welcome to the Galaxy S7 Edge now. Just look at that beauty. It's still an amazing looking phone to me here. This blue coral looks like a seaside blue, and before you say that's a fake S7 Edge because there's no Samsung logo here, this is the Korean model which doesn't have the Samsung logo on it. But man, is that just a gorgeous phone still. Even with that home button, even with those thicker bezels, I just really prefer this design even right now. So I'm not saying it's better than the new designs, but let's take a look at the prices before we go further and discuss if this thing is still worth it. So you can get these in the twos here on Amazon, but you can get them even cheaper if you know where to look, even down to $187. Now, there's budget phones out there that might have a little bit newer stuff in them, but you're not going to even touch the screen on the S7 Edge for $200. You're not going to touch, the curved design of this phone for that price point. Look at that. Like, no way you're getting a design like that at the $200 price point. Now, yes, there are some Xiaomi products, there are some cheaper Chinese phones out there that will give you that, but the S7 Edge still has a lot of flagship DNA that you're not going to find at this price point. So let's get into the first thing I want to talk about, and that's design. Okay guys, so I want to begin by discussing design. The design on the S7 Edge has a curved display. They had curved display on the S6 Edge Plus or whatever it was called, and they had it on the Note Edge, and then we had the S7 Edge, which a lot of people think was the best design we've seen Samsung make. Now, the 8 Plus, I want to bring this phone in here for an example. It is now 2018 and Apple still sells this phone. This is basically the equivalent, Samsung phone in design to something like an 8 Plus. However, an 8 Plus is still going to run you, like $800. Now, the 8 Plus does have a much more powerful processor. This is not a comparison video, but you have updated software, a little bit better updated here. But in terms of design, if Apple can get away with selling an 8 Plus with that older design, then I think Samsung deserves to be able to get away with a sale on this. Now, they're not selling this officially, so you're likely just going to pay a third party to get this. But I'm just saying, getting this right now in terms of design is just fine. You're looking at a 5.5-inch curved Super AMOLED display, and it has very symmetrical curves on the front and the rear here of the device. So it looks great to me. The flat camera design, so there's not a huge bump to deal with on the back of the S7 Edge. And the way this gold comes off this coral blue is just really pretty in my experience. So overall, I gotta say, design here with the S7 Edge, while not 2019, all screen look, really, it doesn't look that dated at all, to be quite honest with you. Okay, so how about the build? Well, we have Gorilla Glass on here, also wireless charging, glass front and rear. So that's pretty modern still, because most phones now do have glass fronts and rears. Now, the S7 Edge, just like most phones in this category with this type of design with glass on the front and the rear, if you drop this thing, it's very easy to get cracks on the corners and even shatter the display. So you get this phone, you still want to get at least a cheap case that at least protected enough to protect you from cracks, because one time the S7 Edge is likely going to crack, at least in the corners or something like that, a chip that's just going to make it look ugly. So definitely the S7 Edge with wireless charging, glass back, most phones are getting that now, but this phone was ahead of its time because it was, having features that we even see now here in cheaper mid-range phones. But still, you got to give it credit. The build is pretty nice here for this device. It doesn't scratch too easily with this aluminum sides. The glass on the rear does scratch easily, but if you get a color that hides it enough, you won't really see it here too much. Now, I did notice that these little metal inserts around the camera do tend to scratch pretty easily, so do keep that in mind if you pick one of these up. But overall, I would say the build is pretty strong. It just needs a case because it's glass. But in terms of its durability, I'm not too worried about it overall. It'll last a while. Okay, so how does it hold up in display? Well, let's put it this way. Samsung's been running the show in display for a long time, and they were running it when the S7 Edge came out too. 1440p resolution, Super AMOLED display, 534 pixels per inch. Doesn't that sound pretty? Yes, it is. Definitely always on display. Viewing angles are fantastic. Gets plenty bright enough. Does have the modes that you can tweak it. And I left that software update on there because we're going to talk something about software in a minute before you go, oh, you haven't updated your software. You're trying to tell me about S7 Edge. You haven't even updated your software. let's go over to the display, and you could see in screen modes, AMOLED Cinema, AMOLED Photo, Basic, you can tweak it out. So to be quite honest, the accuracy, the color accuracy is a little less saturated on the newer phones, but the S7 Edge is almost playing on the same level as even a Note 9, a Galaxy S9 Plus. Those phones are a little bit better in display, but still, this is pretty close. It's not too much different. Most folks wouldn't even be able to see the difference, to be honest. Okay, so software, here's where we run into a little bit of a con. Now, I said I would talk about the software update for a purpose. I left the security patch on here because I wanted to mention that this phone is still getting security updates. Like I said, they're required. But the thing is that this is not going to get the One UI based on my research, as well as, you know, the S7, the smaller one. So you're kind of stuck here on 8.0 unless you want to go get a ROM. You can throw 9Pi on here if you're willing to hack this phone. Luckily, there is a lot of ROMs available for the S7 Edge, but if you don't know what you're doing, you will break the Knox security, which will not allow you to use Samsung Pay. So do keep in mind, if you're going to want to use Samsung Pay, you better know what you're doing or you might mess it up the device. So you're kind of stuck here with 8.0. Is that a bad thing? Not really. I think 8.0 will still be usable for at least 2 more years, but you really don't want to be on old software in this phone game. But at the same time, you're really buying into hardware here with the S7 Edge. If you decide to pick up a secondhand model, it's mostly because you want a premium feeling phone, but you don't want to pay the prices of today's modern flagships. So software is iffy. If you're willing to hack into it and get yourself on a 9Pi ROM, this could definitely be worth it in terms of software, but this could be the deal breaker for people looking for a yesteryear flagship such as the S7 Edge. Okay, so performance. I'm not gonna lie, it's actually pretty snappy, but it has ran into lag a couple of times for me. So it looks pretty fast here on camera, which it is. I mean, I got the 0.5x animations on there. It ain't no slow phone by no means. It does have a 14 nanometer CPU. I believe it's a Samsung Exynos in this model. 8890 clocked in at 2.6 gigahertz. That's an octa-core. So it's definitely not no slow phone, but it might run into lag a couple times, which I have experienced. Now, it's not a deal breaker. It's still faster than, you know, the cheapest phones out there, but I would say it's mid-range performance here now in 2019. It's definitely not premier top dog performance anymore. It was when it came out, but I'd say you're getting about mid-range performance here. A lot of mid-range phones are now being built on either the 16 or 14 nanometer process. So this is like a mid-range performer here in 2019. Okay, so when it comes to the camera on the S7 Edge, you're looking at a single 12 megapixel 4K camera. Is it good here in 2019? And the answer is absolutely. It's good. It's actually really good here still in 2019. It's nowhere near competitive with the latest and greatest smartphones, but some of the even mid-range phones are now getting good cameras. However, the S7 Edge does have a really sharp detail and pretty good contrast. I think the pictures just pop on this phone. So definitely I would pick this up if you're looking for a secondhand phone with a solid camera, because it still has it. It still has the dual pixel AF, and I don't think it's bad at all. Cameras have advanced, but they're advancing in little subtle ways that only people that are really into cameras on phones will notice. So if you're a real, you know, snob about your camera, you probably want something a little newer. But if you just need a solid photo taker, the S7 Edge is pretty good, as well as video. Video is not bad either. It can record some pretty sharp video and focus pretty quickly on things. So I'm gonna say this is still a pretty great camera here on the S7 Edge. Yes, newer phones are better, but for being as old as it is, it's holding up very well. The front one, definitely very soft. You're not gonna like the front one too much though. It just looks pretty artificial. But at least the video on the front can go a little bit higher than 1080. It does about 1440 on the front. Okay, so a con of this phone is micro USB. It does fast charge if you have a fast charger, but that connector is just really old school right now. Also a con, the audio. This is a tinny speaker. It doesn't sound that good. I mean, it's not low, like it's loud enough to hear your call coming in. It's loud enough to listen to a video, but it's very easy to cover it. Samsung has fixed that 2 generations later in the S9. So definitely that can be a little bit of an issue. The headphone jack is in the place I like it, and it still works fantastic. So that's the thumbs up about this phone, is the headphone jack. However, a lot of people have moved on past that, got Bluetooth headphones. So pretty much everything down here is kind of old school right now. These could be cons for you if you're into, you know, all the new tech. But the big one here for me is mainly that micro USB. I just don't like using this port anymore. It's not reversible and everything is going towards USB-C. So this will feel old if you buy this phone. Okay, so when it comes to the battery life, 3600 milliamp hour battery built into the body, and that's actually pretty big for this time. The battery life is still good on the S7 Edge. It's actually better than good. It gets you through a day pretty easily. And then you have fast charging if you need it. Like I say, wireless charging is on board as well. So this phone right here is definitely a thumbs up still for me in battery life. It's not Note 9 or even, you know, some of the newer phones amazing, but it gets you through the day. You did get an excellent battery life here on the S7 Edge. I have no complaints with it. If you want to know my screen on time, it's anywhere from 5 to 5.5 hours in my use. Okay guys, so testing the call quality over my experience, it's been actually pretty good. Samsung phones haven't really let me down in this department ever, and I haven't had an issue with the S7 Edge. Reception with the Qualcomm modems in here also pretty good. The earpiece pretty strong as well. So I think this is a good phone for phone call quality, and the only thing you might have an issue with is the speakerphone. It could be covered up, not dual speakers on here. That might be your only issue here. Overall, I would say 9 out of 10, taking off a point for speakerphone quality, like in terms of how loud it is and being very easy to cover up. Okay guys, so in conclusion, this is a tough one. Is it worth getting an S7 Edge if you're looking for maybe a secondhand phone, an older flagship device? And this is a tough one because the S8 is cheaper now, the S8 Plus is cheaper now. Those are better devices, and honestly, it's really hard to recommend this one. It's a good phone if you could find it like under $100. That's going to be hard. If you could find it under 150, maybe around 150, it could be a good deal. But really, it's got nice hardware, but the software lets it down. I don't think most people want to buy a phone and hack it. A few will. That's very niche crowd that wants to do that. So for me, with all the options in the mid-range, it's not probably super worth it right now. But if you could find it really low, somebody wants to sell it to you, a friend or something, really cheap, or they just want to trade you for maybe an older phone you have as well, it could be a good deal. Or if you just want to hand it off to somebody to give it as a gift, it could be a great deal there. But I cannot personally recommend investing in a phone like the S7 Edge, even though it has a lot of great things about it. There's just a lot of cheaper phones out there, and there's also newer Samsung phones that also you can find pretty cheap third parties, such as, like I said, the S8, the S8 Plus, for example. So for me, the S7 Edge, it was very fun revisiting it. I love this device. It feels great in the hand. It really did push Samsung forward in terms of design and has a great camera, dual pixel AF, but I would look at something else currently right now. What are your thoughts? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you have an S7 Edge? This is not to say it's bad to have one. I'm just saying if you're buying one right now, what has been your experience? Have you traded? Have you moved on? Did you experience this device? Share with the community down below. There's always people looking third party as well as buying new phones, and I'd love to hear from you. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick here helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well. I will catch you all in the next episode. Subscribe for more, and peace.